it's been a while since you and I got to meet. Lots happened here in the NBA playoffs, just the NBA in general. You and I were debating pretty much the last couple of weeks, what LeBron might have left in the tank in terms of maybe doing something quite historic at the age of 41 and maybe leading the Lakers on a magical run. But, of course, it wasn't so magical once they got into the second round and taking on Oklahoma City, right?
Yeah, and that has less to do with LeBron and more to do with Oklahoma City being that elite. I mean, they're that good with their second best player injured right now. Of course, the Lakers have their best player injured right now, so that helps. But yeah, it just sort of there's nothing about this series that's surprising to me.
No, me either. And whether I'm, it's on record here on this podcast. I'm not the biggest LeBron fan in the world, but even I will not blame him for what's taking place in this series. I mean, I believe peak LeBron really wouldn't make that big of a difference in what's going on now between these two teams. I don't even know if Luka was on the floor, if it would make much of a difference. I think it could probably hurt you defensively. I believe, Oklahoma City might actually score more if Luka was on the floor. Might be a little bit more entertaining and competitive, but the difference between these two teams right now is evident on the floor when they reach out there. And Oklahoma City most likely is going to close that one out tonight with the Game 4 out in L.A. I would guess they're a 10.5-point favorite, which I don't know if you follow that, but in an NBA playoff game, that's pretty significant in terms of a point spread.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot. In fact, especially in a second round matchup, you really don't see that. So I would expect that as well. I don't know, maybe the Lakers have a little mojo at home and get one, but this series if it's not ending tonight, it's ending in OKC in Game 5.
Much detail today because we've got a lot to talk about, but I do at some point, you and I want us to kind of break down and kind of get our thoughts on this whole flopping thing that you're seeing a lot with OKC. And it's whole pot meat kettle when the Lakers themselves are pointing fingers at the Thunder for flopping of all things. But I don't want to get too much farther into that, but just kind of put that on your checklist of things you and I can talk about in a later podcast. But I believe it's been brought to the forefront in this series in particular.
I got plenty I could say on that, so be sure to bring that up.
Yeah, I will bring that up when we don't have quite such a loaded schedule here. And I do want you to be able to get in there and follow that show selection or that tournament selection. Okay, so let's talk about the Knicks, and I know that's probably not your most favorite subject to talk about, I believe, but you gotta say how impressive. I mean, you blink if you're Philadelphia and your season's over. I mean, it seems like that series lasted a couple of days. And the Knicks appeared to be so dominant in that it's hard for me to look at what's left in the East and say they are not the favorite to come out of the East right now.
They absolutely are. It was kind of wild to me. Felt like Philly won their Super Bowl when they beat Boston. The Hawks put up a better fight against the Knicks. I do think the Knicks are playing really well. I don't know how much of it, though. I don't know. Philly just putting aside the fact that I am a Celtics fan, I'm mad at Boston because we missed out on a really good second-round series and had to watch just a junk series. This series was never competitive at all, which shouldn't be the way in the second round. And so I'm not saying Boston would have beat New York. I think New York's playing great, but it would have been a lot better than this. This is a complete no-show from Philly. Knicks are definitely the favorites coming out of the East. It will be a different story in the Eastern Conference Finals against either the Pistons or the Cavs, especially if the Pistons get there. Pistons gave the Knicks a battle last year. But, the Knicks are the favorite. And I don't like the Knicks, but the finals in Madison Square Garden is pretty cool. It doesn't matter if you like them or not.
Yeah, and the only question I have here is can they overcome, the fact that they're the Knicks? I mean, history will tell you that plays a big part in their level of success at any point in time. Doesn't matter how good they are, can they overcome just being the New York Knicks? that'll be interesting to see here as they go into this next round. I would think probably, although there's still some basketball left to be played, still I think Detroit is considered the favorite against Cleveland, although that could change here in the next day or two. But yeah, right now, in my mind, there's really no debating the fact that New York at least has played or looked the best that the East has to offer going into the West against most likely Oklahoma City again.
Yep.
Speaking of the West, let's swing out there real quick. Did you catch much of the Spurs Timberwolves last night? That was a quite an interesting game with a lot going on in that particular matchup.
A lot going on. Great one to watch down the stretch. Minnesota had to have it. Anybody who's a fan of the NBA, like me, needed Minnesota to win that game. Otherwise, we were looking at a bunch of runaway series and none of them potentially competitive. Although the Cavs, I could see the Cavs evening things up with the Pistons tonight. But Anthony Edwards, boy, he is something in the playoffs. But, of course, the story, everybody's talking about is the elbow from Wemby last night for sure.
Yeah, and the more I watch that, the officials got it right. You have to call that, and it is what it is. I don't care if it's the playoffs, if it's Wemby, if it's whoever there, you have to call that at any point in time. It was so, well, for lack of a better term, flagrant. I mean, it was what it was. I will be shocked if he is suspended any more than what he was. Now, in the regular season, I wouldn't be so shocked at it. I think he would probably get a game or two. But this particular one, I think the call was right. I would be disappointed if they take away another game with him.
Yeah, no one wants to see that. But it was, the NBA world is such right now where a lot of times you're wondering, I know he made contact and he shouldn't have done it, but how much of that was a flop and yada yada? None of that was a flop, man. That was
old school bad boys type stuff that you used to see from Bill Laimbeer on a nightly basis. Back in the 80s and early 90s, that was a legit elbow to the throat, and he deserved to get ejected out of that. That was the definition of a flagrant two, and I totally was 100% in agreement with that. But I would be disappointed again if it lingers past game 4. I think but anyway, that's a series now. It's going back to San Antonio for a game 5. The Timberwolves have already shown that they can win down there. Who's to say that? I would say that that's a toss-up right now, depending on how game 5 goes.
I mean, typically in these situations, the game 5 winner is the overwhelming, you're going to win the series. Not always, but very likely. So it's tomorrow night. It comes down to it. That's going to be worth watching because the winner's probably winning the series.
Some other news going on in the NBA here off the court, of course. The lottery, of course, was held yesterday. Disappointing for the Dallas Mavericks, of course. And I'm telling you, man, the more I'm thinking about this, the more the conspiracy theories about last year get ramped up in my mind. But the Mavs, of course, actually drop a spot. They will now be drafting 9th in the lottery. As lucky as they were last year, they're drafting 9th. The teams that actually did the obvious tanking, unfortunately, were rewarded for doing that. The Wizards win the lottery. Of course, the big thing out there now is, hey, just go trade for Anthony Davis and you'll be guaranteed to get the first pick in the lottery. But the Mavs would appear to be, and again, you would know more about this than I would. The later part of this particular first round, we've talked about before how talented it is, but I don't really know who's going to be there at 9th that would make much of an impact as it would have been, say, really up around 7, 1 to 7, really. But anyway, any ideas or thoughts that who might be available for them there at 9th that could pair well with Cooper Flagg?
I don't know for sure. I'm looking at ESPN's mock draft right now, which it does kind of, after the top 7, become a little bit of a, what are you going to do? The mock draft has them taking the freshman out of Arizona, Braden Burries, who was, you saw Arizona this year. They were an elite team, largely in part due to 2 freshmen. Burries was one of them. Nate Ament, the kind of wing, kind of a stretch forward from Tennessee is around there. I like him. There's also, if you want a little more experienced player, Yaxel Lindenborg from Michigan. Very physical stretch wing who can pound inside, can knock down a three. If you're looking for a guy that might be the most immediately ready, he might be it. So I would wonder about him. Of course, ESPN's got the Thunder taking him. Why not? They need somebody immediately ready, don't they? But anyway, if you come out of there with Lindenborg or Ament or Burries, I still think that's an impact player. Is it a guy that's going to win Rookie of the Year? No. Is it a guy that can come in and start or be a sixth man off a bench and make a key contribution? Absolutely. So there's still some depth there.
The good thing about getting a talent like Cooper Flagg is that you don't need necessarily another talent like Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
It was kind of greedy to think, hey, we could get a Debansa or a Darren Peterson or someone like that. That was really getting greedy if you're a Mavs fan. You didn't tank enough. I mean, you won too many games.
You just need somebody that pairs well, and there are people that pair well. You know, the biggest story though of yesterday wasn't even the Wizards winning it; is what happened to the Pacers. Did you see that?
Saw that.
The Pacers took a calculated risk. They got a good center from the Clippers, but their pick was only top 4 protected, and now the Clippers. The reason this is huge is the Clippers might choose not to tank next year, and the reason that's important is it wouldn't matter if the Clippers tanked or not. The Thunder have their pick next year.
Yeah.
Do you know how bad the NBA, and this is a big conspiracy theory right here, do you know how bad the NBA needs the Clippers to be good next year? Because the Thunder have their pick.
Right.
So that was critical right there. The Pacers' calculated risk did not pay off because they miss out on somebody good in a loaded draft.
These new proposed anti-tanking rules will quell some of that going into next year.
Yeah.
And for the Mavs in particular, they had a pretty good week where the lottery was just kind of a bummer at the end of it. It wasn't, the sky is falling because of the changes they made in their front office. More about Ujiri probably than I do, but everything I've heard and read and can see on his resume, this was a home run hire. And he followed that up with a pretty good track record guy in the general manager, Mike Schmitz, right? So I actually have a little bit of trust now in the front office that they actually know what they're doing over there, which leads me to think we're going to be able to get us a really good player to put on the floor next year. Actually, a couple of them, because they have 2 first rounders. So
yeah. I think things are really looking up for the Mavs. I do agree. I'm like you. I've only read about these front office hires, and they do seem like good ones. I think you're going to get some solid draft capital. You're going to get some assets there. Of course, so much of this for the Mavericks is health. Do people come back, and do they come back and stay healthy? Specifically, you're looking at Kyrie and you're looking at Derek Lively, but the Mavs are set up nicely. I would say not only to be in the postseason next year, but maybe to even get out of the play-in and maybe get like a 5 or a 6, which would be a really nice step to see what Cooper Flagg can do in that launching forward.
I agree. There's some cautious optimism as we go into the summer. Again, they also have some money to spend on the free agent market if they choose to do that. So anyway, it was a good week for the Mavs. The lottery notwithstanding, it didn't go the way they wanted it to. Actually fell back a spot. And so let the conspiracy theories reign on all of that. But more toward last year and how all that went down. But anyway, the other big news from over the weekend in the NBA as we get ready to close this particular portion out is, of course, Steve Kerr. It was rumored that he could be done as coach of the Warriors. But we found out over the weekend that if he has agreed to come back, signing a 2-year deal to remain as coach at Golden State. I really have no feelings on this one way or the other. I'm not a real big Steve Kerr fan for a lot of reasons. But there's no question that at least it continues to give Golden State some stability out there. as I believe they are still trying to hang on to their core enough to where they can maybe make one more run as long as they got Steph, right?
You know, and that was the reason this would have been a big deal is if shockingly the Warriors had made it into the top 5 or something of the lottery, kind of like what the Mavericks did last year. Because if that had happened, then you'd have had some conspiracy theories. Oh, well, Kerr must have known something, and that's why he decided to come back. But it didn't work out that way. The Warriors will still get a good player. You get Jimmy Butler back, and you try to make one more run. So we'll see.
It's the interesting thing about this to me is there's been a lot said, in particular from Draymond Green, about some things that went on during his time at Golden State. How is that relationship going to be going into next season? Kerr, this is not his first rodeo. He knows what he's dealing with Draymond. But the words have been said, and I don't know, that's kind of an interesting dynamic to kind of see how he plays into that going into next season. But anyway, the Warriors keep their head coach at least for another couple of years out there at Golden State. So anyway, that's your NBA news this morning on the podcast. A lot of stuff going on in the world of professional basketball, and so almost to the conference finals, and of course that's the same time as well.